Welcome to new friends, to old friends, and to sales leaders. I'm excited today about spending some time with you and sharing what I feel are the 5 proven strategies for sales leaders to achieve outstanding results. There is no plan to sell you anything today. I don't want to sell you anything. It's really about offering value and helping you really kick off the next year in a way that's going to ensure that you can achieve outstanding results. Sounds good? Okay, let me just do a couple things. I have a few more people to admit. I'm both hosting and presenting today, which is fun. I hope that that you get excellent value. If you like, my offer is to continue the discussion. If you find some of the stuff, welcome for the new folks who've joined. I just want to say that we're not selling anything today. It's really about offering value and sharing my insights into what I think are the 5 most valuable things as a sales leader you can do to achieve outstanding results. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm real, who've haven't read my book or come to any of my webinars, I just want to say a couple things, and I'll just sort of open up my screen and let you know that there'll be plenty of time for Q&A after. And my intent is to stay on as long as I can to answer any questions that you may have. So let me just pull up the presentation. Share it with you guys. Okay. Well, just for those of you who don't know me, I've coached hundreds of sales leaders and executives over the last 20 years. I've lived in, I would say, all of your shoes, being a sales rep, regional sales manager, national sales manager, VP of sales. And I've worked with extensive groups of sales leaders over the last 20 years. So I try to stay very current, but also my belief is doing the basics well is one of the critical items for success. As I've said, I've been in the trenches, I've led the troops. I've been fortunate enough to be recognized as one of the top 50 sales influencers by Top Sales World. And I also teach at Schulich, which is probably the number 1 or number 2 MBA school in Canada. I teach executive education, and I'm responsible for a portion of the certificate in sales management. My mission is to inspire sales leaders to achieve outstanding results. And I'm passionate, because I only work with sales leaders, about developing great sales leaders. The sales leaders are mainly the frontline sales managers, are the key to driving sales performance, driving engagement, improving retention in sales organizations. You guys are really so important that it always pains me to see that organizations may not be spending enough time or resources on your development. So let me just move forward here. So over the last several years, I don't know if it's 2, 3 years, you have all faced ongoing challenges in relation to COVID. I'm just going to close this up here. Whether it be moving your people from face-to-face selling to working from home, different waves of COVID, whatever the next variant is, we're still not out of it, going from face-to-face selling back to virtual selling, back to face-to-face selling, and sometimes back to virtual selling. I don't know how many of you have planned and canceled live sales meetings. They seem to be back in vogue right now. Dealing with low productivity, dealing with fear and stress of your salespeople and yourselves. The challenge of retaining people, given this exit to new jobs and what have you. Other issues such as supply chain issues, back orders, missing quota, prices of raw materials going up, inputting your cost of goods sold, and having to pass on price increases to your customers, having to deal with many, many issues. And recently, We've seen interest rates shoot up, and there's talk of an economy that's turning downwards. So with all this being said, you guys have been stretched, and gals have been stretched to your limit. Your senior managers, presidents, CEOs, I find have become much more risk averse. As much as they still have lofty goals, they're either laying some people off, they're not approving projects that may be of high value to the organization. And your salespeople are experiencing what I call change exhaustion. So as a leader, at the end of the day, the fun never stops. But whether it's a good economy, a bad economy, you've pulled through. And I can assure you that the next year will face all types of new challenges that we haven't even thought about. And there's folks out there who are coming up with new strategies, new ways to lead, new technologies. But I really believe that if you do the basics extremely well, you are going to be successful. And that's what the talk today is about. I want to share some things that you can implement that will take you from good to great. And if I have two messages today, here they are. Number one, and this comes from Peter Drucker. And what Peter said is effective leadership is not about speeches. It's not about being liked. Leadership is defined by results, not by attributes. And as a sales leader, that is double for you, right? The fact is your results are critical and you are judged by your results. The second component that I'd like to talk about is good sales leaders deliver good results. Great sales leaders deliver outstanding results. And as I said, you are the key to driving performance within your sales team. If you're senior, it's within your sales organization. The fact is, many of the things I'm going to share with you today are things that you may be doing, but you may just be doing an okay job, or you may be doing a good job. If you're doing a great job on the 5 things I'm going to share with you, you are, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but you're highly likely to achieve outstanding results, whether the economy is good, whether the economy is bad, whether COVID, whether some other deadly virus that hits. These are the things you need to do on an ongoing basis to be successful. So what are they? My 5 key focuses for achieving outstanding results are: focus on coaching. Make sure that you are not only a good coach, but you're a great coach. Execute with excellence. Many companies struggle to execute effectively. Proactively manage performance. And I'll just say performance, given it is we always review it after it happens. Proactive is one of the challenges, and we'll talk about how to proactively do that. Focus on results. How do you focus on results? Because focusing on results doesn't deliver results. And how do you hire, select salespeople who have the potential to be top performers? And as I said, most of you are probably doing an okay job on all 5 of these, and even probably a good job. However, there are very few sales leaders who are doing a great job on these 5 basic proven strategies to deliver outstanding results. My goal today is to share some very high value insights and approaches that I share with my clients and help them make the leap from good to great and achieve outstanding results. Sounds good? All right. So the first one, as I've chatted with many of you and trying to figure out how to make coaching really tick in your organization. Yes, you've done some training on coaching. Yes, you recognize that coaching is important. But if you were to implement one strategy and become great at it, this is the one. Because the role of the sales leader is to develop your people to be better. And this comes down to effective coaching. So why coaching? Okay. At the end of the day, great coaches achieve far better results than their less effective counterparts. Coaching is the #1 sales management activity that drives outstanding performance. Studies have shown the impact of great coaching could be as high as 19, 20, 25%. More coaching you do, regardless of how good you are, drives more sales. The whole idea is your reps become better sellers. Coaching also has a very positive impact on sales rep engagement and retention. And if you have millennials in your sales force, which most of you do, they expect to be coached. If you're not coaching them, they're probably saying, hey, you know, I'm going to go to an organization that would. The only problem we face is that sales managers struggle to coach. So if you're a frontline sales manager and you're listening today, I'd like you to commit to becoming a great coach. And I'll tell you how. If you're an executive, a director, commit to developing a team of great sales coaches. So coach them, train them, develop them, help them become great. And what I'm going to talk about is what I call the 3 keys to great coaching. Number 1 is effectiveness. Number 2 is time. And number 3 is focus. So let's talk about 5 keys to becoming a highly effective coach. Okay, coaching is not an easy skill to master. So to me, the number 1 thing with coaching is it requires a different mindset. And it's a shift. It's a shift. So if you want to become a great coach, the first shift you got to make, the first thing you got to do differently to become a great coach is start asking questions. Don't tell your people what to do. Don't necessarily give them feedback right away. Ask questions. Get them to think. The second one is, or the third one is, get them to self-evaluate. When you're out with them doing a field visit, you're going to ask some great questions. The hope is that when you're not with them, they're asking themselves the same question. So they're continually self-evaluating how they're doing. So hold back on providing feedback when you're out with them. Ask them to self-evaluate. Ask them what worked well, because we want to create self-coaches. Focus on development. Great coaches reference coaching plans, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, every time they're out in the field. And great coaches also spend time between field visits when they're talking to the reps to spend 5 or 10 minutes on the key areas they're working on. So there's a constant focus on development. And then when I talk about development, I talk about 1 or 2 skills that will have a positive impact on their performance. Because as we're going to learn today, or even in your own mastery of skills, mastery of any skill takes 3 to 6 months if everyone's doing their job, if the rep is working on development, if you're holding them accountable. And that's really the last thing. And most coaches will tell me that we probably do a pretty good job on, on the first 4. Where we can get far better is on accountability. And that is the real power of coaching. People are more likely to do something or to do something they committed to if they know that the person they committed to, being you, the coach, is going to hold them accountable. That you have a next meeting, you're going to come back and say, hey, Stephen, you said you were going to work on your prospecting. How has that gone? And those are 5 keys. So one most important thing is starting with a shift in your mindset. Okay. So here's one of the things that I find, it amazes me, because in most organizations, we have IDPs, which are individual development plans. And this process is run by HR. And not that I have anything against HR, but what happens with individual coaching plans is they're done once because you have to do them because HR says so. And then they're reviewed at the mid-year and they're reviewed at the end of the year. Those are full of shit. Okay. They don't produce any skill mastery. They don't move anyone along. They don't develop. It's a process that to me should be thrown out the window. But what great coaching starts with is a plan. Okay. And if you don't have a plan when you're coaching your people, then what you're coaching is what I call flavor of the day coaching. Today you focus on chocolate. Tomorrow you focus on vanilla. Okay. It's the flavor of the day. So cookies and cream, I put down as one example. If there's no plan in place to coach someone, there's no consistency, coaching becomes more difficult. So what does a plan look like? I don't know how many of you put plans in place, but what I have seen is every company that I've worked with does not. So I assume most companies don't. And a plan is as simple as this one-page document you see, which focuses on three key things. What is the sales rep committed to working on that will have a positive impact on their performance? Okay, let's identify. Maybe it's prospecting, maybe it's closing, maybe it's product knowledge, but all three of those will have a positive impact on their performance. So it should be something not like, one of my coaching clients said to me, Stephen, I want to work on Excel skills. Well, that's not sales leadership coaching. Go take an Excel course for $200. Don't waste your money and time on me teaching you how to do Excel. So what do you want to focus on? Number two, which is always hard, is, okay, you want to focus on becoming better at prospecting. How are you going to get there? And this is putting it back to the rep. They're building their plan. You are asking effective questions in a coaching mindset. Okay. So the key is not trying to do too much. And I'm going to talk about that in some other strategies. But what I'm talking about is have them pick one or two skills. And the key word is that they're committed to. Okay. If they're committed to improving, that will have a positive impact on their performance. Okay. Have the rep work with you to develop a plan. And to me, a plan is, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5 things, tactics, actions they're committed to doing. Let's timestamp them. So when, by the end of March, I will have done X, Y, and Z. And as a sales manager, let's remember that skill mastery does not happen in one field visit. It takes months to master a skill. It takes months of continuous reinforcement, accountability, action to really help someone get better at a particular skill. So as a sales manager, how do you gauge your coaching effectiveness? My approach is, if you're able to move a rep, but each of your reps, from a skill proficiency of, let's say, prospecting of 3 on 5 to a 4.5 on 5 over a 6-month period, you've done an outstanding job. Okay. And the hardest part of doing this is not just setting up the plan, but holding your people accountable to following up and doing the actions they committed to. Okay. The second thing of great coaching is really about time. And the third thing is focus. So time. How many of you have said, I wish I had more time in the field to coach? Well, it's not going to happen, because coaching, time and focus also starts with a plan. So if you're not building a plan on how often you're coaching each of your reps, which reps you're focusing on, how often you're going to be in the field, setting a target of how many days you intend to be in the field. And if you remember, I said coaching is the #1 sales management activity that drives performance. So if you commit to, let's say, 100 days in the year, that's about 40%, give or take. 120 to me is about 50% of your time. So let's say you committed to 120 days, business days in the field coaching. On a quarterly basis, what does that look like? 120 divided by 4 is 30 days. If you're not planning your 30 days out in the field each quarter, well, the chances are you're not even going to get close to that. So we use a tool called the Coaching Effort Allocation Optimizer, which looks at how much time you spend in the field. It totals it up, how much by quarter and how much by rep. Because from a focus perspective, coaching, we don't treat all reps equally. Where we want to spend our time coaching is where we're going to have the biggest impact. So you could look at it one of 2 ways, or one of many ways, but one is, how coachable are people? Because you want to spend time with people who are highly coachable. And then where do your reps rank in terms of your A's, your B's, and your C's? So you want to be spending a larger portion of your time coaching your B's, because they have the biggest potential to shift along the performance curve. Okay, they have the most opportunities there. So a coachable B is a great place to spend more of your time. Your A's, let's not forget them from a coaching perspective, but you want to make sure you show them the love and you're out with them. Your C's really become a question of, what are you going to do with them? Can you move them? Can you not? So again, Great coaching is highly effective coaching, optimizing your time or maximizing your time, and optimizing where you focus your efforts. So let's talk about that. That concludes coaching. So I don't know if the ABC analogy works, but always be coaching. If you want to be a great sales leader and deliver outstanding performance, if you do one thing after today, it's become a great coach. So the next thing I'm looking at in terms of strategies, because most organizations struggle to execute. Okay, and I'm going to talk about 3 steps or 3 key things you can do to execute with excellence. But before I do that, I just want to define what excellence is. And I define it as execution is the discipline, because it takes discipline to execute. It's not just pie in the sky. So the discipline of getting the most important things done and doing them really well. And I learned this many years ago when I hired someone away from my competitor. And this guy was a seasoned key account guy and very bright. His name was Bruce. And Bruce said to me, he says, you know, what's interesting, Stephen? You and the company I worked for before both have similar strategies. The strategies aren't that much different. But what makes a difference is who is going to execute them better. And I took that to heart because most companies, as I said, and there's a great HBR edition that talks solely about execution, the challenges companies face with execution. And I'm going to share with you some things you can do to execute with excellence, which has a real competitive advantage if you can do a great job in that area. So here are the 3 things I talked about. One is have a written sales execution plan. Leadership to keep people focused on what's important and making sure you have a ongoing review process to keep things on track. So a lot of people say to me, Stephen, I don't have an execution plan. We don't write a sales execution plan. Well, if you don't, then you're not going to execute with excellence. So there's 3, I don't want to say very simple, but simple steps to putting together a sales execution plan. And it talks to my whole concept of focus. To me, if you're going to have the discipline to do the most important things really well, you need to figure out what the 3 most important things are that are going to drive success of your team. I call those 3 critical success factors. So sometimes we do this as a team. We bring all the sales managers together and define what are the 3 things that we need to do to be highly successful. If it's a leadership team, well, we need to become great coaches. Okay. So developing a plan, which has 3, so you've narrowed it down. You could do a brainstorming session to call out all the critical success factors, and then really boil it down to 3 so you can do those extremely well. So, similar to a coaching plan, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do to achieve each of your critical success factors? And then establish a metric to measure. So let's say, hey, we want to spend 120 days in the field coaching. We want to spend more time. Well, your metric is 120 days of field coaching. Establish those so you can measure them. So a written plan starts with what are our 3 critical success factors? How are we going to get there? And how are we going to measure it? And if you think of all the time that your marketing counterparts spend on developing marketing plans, it could be a 3-month process till they develop brand plans, strategies, tactics. All I'm saying is you need to spend a day, maybe 2 half days to develop an execution plan so you can keep your people focused on what's critical. And that's really the next step. Okay, so we've talked about developing an execution plan. If you're not doing that, you should be. I have a great PDF that I can send you on strategy execution, which outlines sort of these 3 steps. I may break them into 5, but it's 3 essential steps to getting there. If you're not doing it, you may be doing an okay job executing. You may be doing a good job, but without a plan, as they say in New York, forget about it. You're not going to execute with excellence. So the second component, once you have your plan, is it's up to sales leadership to be continually reminding the salespeople and themselves as to what are the critical success factors. Because in sales, sometimes we chase the shiny fish. My coach has told me I chase the shiny fish because the shiny fish is always more exciting than doing the things that are critical. So make sure in your email communications, when you're out with your people, when you're at meetings with your people, that leadership's job is to remind people and to keep them focused on what's critical. The last component, like anything you do, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. People respect what you inspect. And really the third component of executing with excellence is having regular scheduled meetings, quarterly reviews, maybe it's monthly reviews of key metrics to keep your execution on track. Let me just take a little breather here. Nothing like cold coffee. So the third thing, a third strategy, is what I call proactively managed performance. Okay, so we know that being a sales manager, you have to lead, you have to manage. And how do you proactively manage performance? Because performance is reviewed after the fact, right? When we look at metrics, they're already done. So how do you become proactive? Because really the whole idea of becoming proactive is so you're not a micromanager. And you know, my last job in industry, I was VP of sales, and I had a boss, the president, who was a micromanager. And nobody wants to work for a micromanager. And you know, whenever I'd roll out a new initiative, launch something new, he would constantly want to know how it's going. And he used to drive me completely crazy. So if you're a micromanager, I can tell you, because I've had lots of discussions, that you're driving your people crazy. But you do have to manage performance. So a micromanager, this is how it was described to me. It felt like when you're launching a new initiative, you plant the seed. And the micromanager digs it up every day to see why it's not growing. If that's you, let's talk about ways that you can effectively manage performance and avoid at any cost being a micromanager. Okay, and there are three components to what I talk about proactively managing performance. One is establishing cadence. Two is always focus forward. And three is continually raise the bar on performance. And let me talk about how you can move from good to great. If you're not doing these things, then moving to them is going to move you along the curve. So the first thing is what I call establishing cadence. And cadence it's used in music. It's a rhythm. It's a rhythm of how we do business, how we set up meetings, how we manage performance. And it's very important to establish this. Number one, you know, if you're going to have monthly review meetings, set that up. So you want to basically be very clear on what meetings you're going to set, what is the frequency, what is the duration. So every month we spend 45 minutes with each rep reviewing their performance. You want to be very clear. So when you're having a review meeting, that you've defined the purpose and the expectations. And for me, the expectations, if you go sit down with your boss for a review, you come prepared, right? You come prepared with your sales numbers, with your strategy execution plan, so on and so forth. So to me, defining the reason for the meeting. So if it's monthly, you're reviewing performance, you're reviewing activities, and you're reviewing their plan for the next month. It's really indicative to set the expectation that the rep comes prepared. Okay. What I have learned actually through the School of Hard Knocks is if you don't have consistent process and a standard template, that people go off in their own direction to prove that their performance is on track. So, you know, whether you're operations people, whether yourself, you know, for whatever you're doing, whether it's a monthly meeting, a quarterly meeting, even a coaching field visit, that there's a standard process and templates that everybody uses. And the other thing that happens is cadence falls apart when sales are good. When we're rocking it, basically, you know what, there's no need to meet. Let's just cancel this monthly meeting. Let's cancel this quarterly meeting. To me, part of establishing cadence is committing to the process. I'll tell you why shortly, is committing to the process and regardless of performance, following through on the meeting cadence. Okay. So this is a concept, I'm not sure where it came from actually, but it was a course I took many moons ago. And the whole concept is when you're reviewing performance, where do you spend your time? If you're doing a quarterly review, there are usually two parts. So how much time do we spend reviewing and how much time do we spend on next steps? And this is a really important concept because far too many managers spend too much time driving while looking in the rearview mirror. It's important to look in the rearview mirror, but it's important because if you want to be proactive, you can't change what happened. You can learn from it, but you need to be making plans for the next month, the next quarter, whatever that time period is. And it's up to the rep to come prepared. So it's a very simple concept. And I'm giving you the answer right here. And maybe the answer is not 100% precise. Okay. So the question is how much time in a review meeting, whether it's a monthly review meeting you're having with each rep, a quarterly business review meeting, how much time do you spend reviewing what's happened? And how much time do you spend focused forward? Is it 80-20? Is it 50-50? Or is it 20% review and 80% forward? The one in red is my answer. Many people may disagree, say, Stephen, it's 70-30. Stephen, it's 40-60. I don't care. My point is you want to spend more time on what you can impact. So to me, that is one of the ways to proactively manage performance. So if a rep doesn't come with a plan when they're at a review, or you don't come with a plan for your boss, well, to me, you're doing an okay or a good job. If you want to do a great job, the expectation is that we come with a plan and we spend adequate time reviewing what's going to happen next. The next concept, I love it. Not to say that a lot of my clients have used it and they've experienced outstanding results or outstanding growth. And it's really based on a very simple expectation. A very simple concept is, how do we know what our true potential is if we're not pushing the limits? Okay. To me, it is about pushing the limits of how much we can do. It's not pushing your people, but it's stretching their thinking. Okay. And what it looks like, quite simply, I don't care where you're at when we're reviewing your performance. If you're at 90%, I want to make sure you're thinking about how to get to 95 and 100. If you're blowing things away and you're at 115, what are you going to do to take your sales to 120% of quota? We never cap out on growth because the next year we're going to be asked to grow more. That's just the reality of business. So what it means for a rep when you're coming in to do a monthly review, it's always about what are you going to do to move your performance to the next level. I call it raising the bar. So how do you as a leader make this happen? Well, number one is there's an expectation that people come prepared because they know that you're going to ask them, what are they going to do to get to the next level? If you don't constantly ask that, no one's going to think. And to me, it's about stretching people's thinking. And I take a very simple approach. So my sales rep comes in, they're at 100%. And I assume they're going to come with a plan, and the plan has a couple things of what they're going to do to get to 100 or 110. And my first question is, what else can you do? Because you're stretching your thinking, because we tend not to be exhaustive thinkers. And as a leader, you want to exhaust your people's thinking as to things they can do to improve performance. So again, what else can you do? What else can you do? And then if you've exhausted their thinking, the final question is there anything else you can do? But if you want to raise the bar on performance, set the expectation that you're always going to ask, set the expectation that you expect them to come prepared, and ask effective questions as to what else can they do. So they're thinking exhaustive thinking, right? And we're pushing it to all the things we can do to improve performance. Make sense? All right. So focus on results. I threw this one in just like proactively managing performance, which maybe is a misnomer, because the message here is you don't get results by focusing on results. You get results by focusing on results generating activities, RGAs. Where you spend most of your time has a direct impact on the results you achieve. Okay, I had probably the brightest leader I've ever worked with, and I worked with him for a number of years. And his biggest frustration was, Stephen, I can't keep up with my emails. And this person had capacity to do a lot of things, but when you get 200 emails a day, all of a sudden you're drowned in minutia. Okay, at the end of the day, and I'm going to say this twice, at the end of the day, nobody cares if you're on top of your emails if your results aren't there. No one will say, hey, Stephen was fast on responding to his emails, and it's okay that he only achieved 90% of his team's quota. No one gives a shit how good you are at emails. What they care about is results. So you need to put in the work, okay? If you want to get results, I've given you 3 things so far that will drive results. But you need to put in the work, and you need to avoid distractions that don't yield you results. So this is more about time and where you spend your time. So going from good to great starts with taking control of where you spend your time. It means being judicious on accepting meetings, spending time on minutia, which we all sort of get lulled into. And what I'm going to do, I've got my concept on how to do this, and I'm going to break activities into 3 buckets, because that's how I look at it. And these are my 3 buckets. So you have results generating activities. For a sales rep, quite simply, it's making sales calls. Maybe it's prospecting, which could be the same. For a manager, results generating activities is get out and coach. I talked to you about more time coaching. This is along the same theme. Excuse me. So you have, excuse me again. Let me just clear my throat. So you've got job-related activities. As a sales leader, you got to approve expense reports. Maybe you got to get some reports into your boss. Maybe you got to sit in a couple of meetings that are relevant to you. Okay. And then you have time-sucking activities. People book you into nonsensical meetings. I used to sit in senior management meetings when my first role as a senior manager, and I say to the team, I have a business to run. Why are we talking about these things? Because, one of the group, maybe it was HR, would say, okay, on Friday, should we have bagels? Should we have donuts? Or should we have croissants? And my answer is, I don't care. That's not going to generate results for me. So being judicious about your time. So basically, it's very simple strategies, results generating activities. You want to increase your time spent on those. You want to maximize your time spent on those. And you want to block them in your calendar so nobody else takes them. I talked to you about that on coaching time. Job-related activities. Okay, there's some stuff you got to do. So you want to minimize the time, do it more efficiently, do it at night, I don't care, or delegate some of those. Time-sucking activities, people put stuff in your calendar, you want to reduce, you want to drop them, and you want to minimize your time spent on those. Very simple. Understand your 3 buckets and act accordingly. So here's, I call this focused time, because you're focused on results generating activities. And I don't know, I broke it into 5 steps, which seemed like a logical approach. So the first thing is identifying your activities. So if you made a list, if you pulled out your calendar and sat down for 25 minutes, do you know, or actually some of the great leaders I've worked with have shifted to knowing what their top 3 results generating activities are, their most important job related activities are, and their 3 biggest time wasters. If you know what those are, you're in good shape to make change and to become great at managing your time and focusing your efforts. Okay, so you want to prioritize those activities. Obviously, results generating, your top 3 get booked in your calendar for the next 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. I don't care. As many sales leaders do, we book national sales meetings 6 months in advance. Book your top revenue generating activities into your calendar, not the book, block. Okay. Take time to analyze and really, if you walk away from this and over the holidays or over a weekend, analyze where you're spending your time and allocate your time to what's going to drive results. 4, I'll talk about it next slide. And then shifting your focus from getting rid of those time-sucking activities to focusing on results-generating activities. And for those of you who say to me or to your boss or to yourself that you wish you had more time to spend in the field, I say, poo-poo. The only reason why you don't is because you're not effectively managing your time and focusing where you're going to generate results. And at the end of the day, nobody cares if you're not allocating it in a place that's going to deliver the outstanding results that's expected of you. So this is my calendar. I played around a little bit. And to me, here are some tips. Okay, I want to share some tips. I probably shared a ton of tips, but here's some very simple ones. Number 1, block off or schedule your most important activities and do it as far out as you can so no one else blocks those. Eliminate or say no to your 3 TSAs, your time-sucking activities. Say no. If the same person keeps inviting you to a meeting that's irrelevant to you, say no. See how many, if you did this backwards, going, looking back, how many hours can you free up in a week? How many more hours can you spend on results generating activities? And that is really the key. If you are judicious and disciplined, you can deliver outstanding results and become a great sales leader just by effective time allocation. So here are some steps that I kind of think about when doing it. Take time to reflect. Actually, book some time in your calendar to reflect on how are you doing. Also, reflection to do some critical thinking. Block off, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes at the beginning of each week to identify your top priorities. Make time for the commitments you've made. Set boundaries on your own meetings. If you're running a meeting and you say it's going to be an hour meeting, then the cadence is that you follow that duration. Okay. You don't run an hour and 15-minute meeting because you're not respecting your time or the other person's time. Clearly know what your highest and best payoff RGAs are and set those in priority. Build what I call the no muscle. Say no. Say no to things. At the end of the day, nobody cares. And block your time before somebody else does. If you notice in this calendar, I did a mock-up for fun. There's plenty of space there. Well, guess what? Someone who's looking to have a meeting with you is going to say, ooh, okay, there's a space on Tuesday between 10 and 11. I'm going to book that. Really? Well, it's up to you to really control your calendar and make sure that if you notice there's more RGAs in here, I can do better. And you can do better if you want to be great. The last one is an interesting one. Well, they're all interesting, but leveraging science to predict the potential to be a top performer. Hiring is one of the most difficult tasks, skills, things that you do, but it's probably one of the most important. So how do you make it better? At the end of the day, you look, there's 5 people sitting here waiting to be interviewed by you. And the reality is, just by sheer numbers, or we talk about top performers, well, by definition, a top performer is the top 20% of salespeople. But the question is, which one of these is the top 20% or has the potential to be the top 20%? So what good sales leaders do is they do a couple steps. One, they do an initial interview to assess fit. That's a great idea. Spend some time, make sure the people fit the job, fit your company, what would add to your team. Then they use behavioral interviewing skills to assess competencies and have your candidates basically describe what they've done to be successful in any of the questions. Excuse me. They follow a rigorous hiring process, and they tend to use their gut as part of the process. And gut is good if you have years of experience. Gut is not always the best. So what I've done is work with great sales leaders to move from good to great in hiring, because it is critical. If you make a bad hiring decision, you pay for it for a long time, 3, 6 months, 12 months. you know, and there's all types of costs, sometimes 3 times the salary, some people equate it to. Sometimes it's more in terms of opportunity costs. So the use of science or psychometric profiles to provide a level of objectivity in assessing each candidate and which candidates have the potential to be top performers, to me, is something that will help you move from good to great. So profiles look for candidates who have the right stuff. You want a highly validated profile. You want one that's been used in your industry or many industries, and they look for the right sales DNA. They also help you flag areas that great interviewing skills may not elicit. So as hiring is one of the most important tasks, to me, the more rigorous you can do, the more steps you can do, you take the guesswork out of the hiring process. So remember, when hiring new reps is the lifeblood of your sales organization. These are the people that hopefully will be there 5, 10, 15 years. So it's so critical that you really take your hiring process or your hiring skills or your hiring strategy from good to great. One of the components that I find missing most in organizations is the use of science, because you can learn from these profiles over time. You can do retroactive studies to see which profiles are your top performers, which ones you've hired and how well they've worked out. So let me just conclude here on this. So this is an example of a hiring tool that I use. It doesn't, the first thing is they don't override great interview skills. It just adds one more input to make better hiring decisions, because sometimes top performers don't always stand out in an interview. By leveraging the value of predictive science, which this one gives you a very simple system. You get detailed reports on the candidate. You also have, if you look on the far left or the top, you have a green light to proceed. And you look at probability of success. This one says 80%. That's pretty high. Yellow light means proceed with caution. You want to dig deeper. You want to make sure this is the right candidate. If you get a red light, it talks about proceeding with extreme caution, which says, hey, you know what? I'm not sure if this is the right candidate for you. Let's go back on our notes. Let's look at other candidates. So you can use these further on in the hiring process. They don't have to be used up front, because the fact is there's nothing that beats great interviewing skills, but this adds to your great interviewing skills and provides a level of objectivity to do one of the most important things you do and take the guesswork out of hiring. So again, my message, great sales leaders outperform because they do a great job on doing the 5 basic things I talked about: coaching, executing, managing performance, focusing their time where they're going to get the biggest return, and being able to identify and select top performers. Okay. There may be pundits that come out and say, hey, these are new approaches. Hey, there's gimmicks. But the bottom line is, whether the economy is good, whether the economy is bad, whether we have COVID, whether we have MOVID, whether we have something else to deal with supply chain issues, if you as a sales leader, and you're the most important person for driving performance in your organization and your team, if you do these 5 basics, not just good, but do them great, I'm not going to guarantee, but I can say you're highly likely to crush your sales numbers in the new year. Okay, friends. I hope that you've made some notes and you've walked away with some key things that you can do differently to move your skills or your strategies from good to great. I've reiterated my key messages. At the end of the day, as a sales leader, you are responsible for results. Okay. And of course, your goal is to achieve outstanding results. Great sales leaders do achieve outstanding results. If you're a good sales leader, well, good is only good. If you want to level up and become a great sales leader and achieve outstanding results, set a time to meet with me. Go to the URL, Stephen sorry, not Stephen, but starresults.com/outstanding results. Book a 30-minute meeting with me. I'm happy to spend time understanding your unique situation and how you can move from good to great. I have to tell you, like I've done a number of these, you'll walk away with some great ideas, how you can immediately implement and improve your results starting in the new year. It's probably the most valuable 30 minutes you can ever spend on yourself. And I promise you, you'll be blown away by the level of value. Plus, it's not a sales call. It's all win-win. So let's talk about you and how we can help you achieve outstanding results. I'm trying to see, is there any other questions? I guess you can feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat box. I don't see, I see it's a lot of thank yous, so you guys are welcome. Mark, thanks for asking a question and putting me to task. I think that's a great question. And, you know, I guess what we can pull out of it is be judicious with your C's. I really do believe show your A's the love. And if you can improve, and if opportunities to improve performance, usually the A's are very open to coaching. So you may not have to spend as much time. Usually they pick up things quickly. Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks a ton, Steve. Great session.
Thank you. Wishing all of you and yourself, Mark, as well, a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And if I can help anyone, it's not my goal to sell anybody anything unless you need it. But you're welcome to connect with me, starresults.com/outstanding results. And you can book a 30-minute meeting, and I'd be happy. And I've got time now from now to the end of the year, if that's a good time for you. I get busy in January. So if you want to book it now. If not, thank you for your time. I hope that you walked away with one or two key gems. Have a great rest of the week.